And welcome to the WELLth Agora. This is a place for dialogue, collaborative conversations about all things wealth and movement, and brings to light words like legacy and nature, experience, education, and safety. Those words are important to me, and I believe that they have a role to play in being for the world with the planet from the whole. And I'm taking it upon myself as a way in which to do a legacy project around their use, bring them forward, but not in the sense of saying they are the only words. It's my way of encouraging you, those of you who are aging, solo agers, eco agers, to look at what words are really important in your life and being for the world with the planet from the whole. And so today I decided to take a look at a phrasing, experience the extraordinary. And it comes from the sense of experience. And I want to go through a look at this word of experience. And I'm going to unpack what I will call 5 tips to experience the extraordinary via a legacy project. And I'm doing this again because it's a way for me to organize my time, effort, and money in such a way as to contribute a project, a legacy project, and being for the world with the planet from the whole. So this has a bit of a personal leaning to it. I'm hoping to share with you as a way for you to go, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, or that's really great, or you know what, I think I'll reach out to Stephen and see what he's got to say about this, and thus you can subscribe or comment, like, share wherever you find this video. I will do my best to figure out where you are and answer your questions, or we can set up a time to have a chat about things. So to be able to guide me in this conversation with you, and again, it is a conversation. It'll have a feel a bit of a presentation because we are using this online format. But if you do send in requests, I've just turned on the chat function. I will do my best to keep an eye out for it. If you're coming in on Facebook, unfortunately, I can't see you at the moment, and but I'll do my best to go back and forth and see what I can do. But the sense of the presentation today is sort of focused on the 5 tips to experience the extraordinary from a legacy project perspective. There's 5 topics that I thought I'd take a look at. There's values and challenges. There's this notion of a experience or an experience, to experience, the experience, and their combination. The notion of action outcomes and how important they play a role in this experience extraordinary. And then there's some other words I want to take a look at in 2 groupings: novel, dramatic, safer, and consequential, workable, and metaphoric. Now, these are a starting point. You will come back to the channel. You will find other videos that dig deeper into or widen out aspects of this story that's unfolding. So with that, I'd like to start with the notion of what is experience, what's extraordinary, what's legacy project. Now, to be able to do that, I would like to share is that for many years I have been involved in the world of experience and outdoor education, outdoor recreation, and the use of nature as a way in which to create experiences for persons that I'm interacting with. But I've also had the pleasure of traveling around the world and seeing lots and lots of different areas of the world and having different kinds of experiences. So this notion of experience is sort of woven into my being. It comes out in everything that I share. in terms of even an experiential, experience-based approach to education that I use, and this notion of the extraordinary. Now, I want to bring this forward is because one area that I also enjoy is the area of mentor and mentoring. And if you'd like to learn more about certification of mentor and the processes of mentoring, you can reach out again. If not, on YouTube is the International Mentoring Community, and you can take a look at what's happening over there. I have a co-founder, Doug Lawrence. We interact and help persons understand mentoring and award certification. But in there, Doug and I often talk about a continuum. And the continuum is along this notion of good, great, memorable, remarkable, extraordinary. And these are ways to talk about mentoring and mentoring as a form of experience. And I'll dig deeper into experience here in a few minutes. But it's this continuum I just wanted to bring to your attention because you could have a good experience, a great experience, a memorable experience, a remarkable experience, an extraordinary experience. And let me give you a couple of examples of that. There was a time when I was on a beach in Australia. It was during my travels around the world, and I had gotten up early to join a group. And what we were doing is toasting our friendship through a glass of champagne and some munchies. And I had the opportunity to sort of bring the sunrise in on that beach, not in direct look at the sunrise, but the filling in of the beach and what it meant for all of us. And I just found it to be an extraordinary experience. And it's one of the ones that I always remember when I think of Australia. Another extraordinary experience I had was the experience of fighting a forest fire. Now, I was in the mop-up stages and helping out sort of in the background. It turned and it came back to us, so we had to be taken out of the area. But just before going into the mopping up system, I was working the radio and making sure that all was okay, and had a call come in about two firefighters that were going to be trapped against the forest fire movement and a lake. And I was asked if I could go and evacuate them, which I decided that I could. And it was safe enough for me to do that. So I grabbed the motorboat and went around a couple corners and saw where the actual fire was coming down the hill towards the lake. And I could just see the firefighters, and I went and I grabbed them in time. And as we motored away, you could see how the fire had actually taken and engulfed the trees right there on the lake. And it was an extraordinary experience for me because it was the sound, but it was all the visual as well of seeing that forest fire and thinking about, wow, that is a really powerful natural event. It was actually a lightning strike that created it. And it was one of those ones that embedded in my mind this notion of the power and force of nature. And I never, and I'll use word never, lost that sound, that sight, the smiles on the two firefighters' faces as we came back into a safe place. So when I think of the extraordinary on that continuum, there are events in my life, in your life, that would be extraordinary. And I sort of think of them as adding the dashes between my birth year and my transition year. And my life has been how many dashes, extraordinary experiences can I add in between those two sort of bookends of my life. And that was how I sort of put those two. There's lots of others that I've had experiences, extraordinary experiences. I've had lots of good and great and memorable and remarkable, but there's been some of those extraordinary ones as well. And as dashes, they're just wonderful reminders, and they actually can be found to come out in some of the work that I do. And that's where this notion of the legacy project connection comes in, to experience those extraordinary and how they might weave together into a legacy project. So, project is the notion of organizing something, organizing your time, effort, and money into something that has sort of a boundedness to it that we call a project. You project manage it and you bring it out in being for the world, with the planet, from the whole. One of the legacy projects is I enjoy writing. And what I do is I find ways in which to bring these extraordinary experiences or support how people can encounter extraordinary experiences. So my legacy project is around writing around awareness and forests and awareness and trees. I'm bringing it out from an activity book sort of sense, or prompt books. But I also enjoy writing, and I bring it out through the use of things like journals and workbooks. And that picture is on the slide. And when I bring that back up to talk about the 5 tips, those are ways in which I bring my legacy project to the foreground. And every one of those I write tends to have a feeling of being extraordinary for me. Now, each person who reads them or comments on them, they give me a sense of good to extraordinary. And that's great. Not everything that I work on is going to meet the extraordinary level for you. But if they are ways in which to bring the extraordinary experience to the foreground for you, I am more than pleased with that. And again, comment, like, share, let me know about that, and I will certainly interact with you. So back to this notion of the 5 tips to experience the extraordinary through a legacy project. What you have to remember is that legacy is about the useful whats that you gift others so that they can learn something from your lived experience. So, of all those good to extraordinary dashes you have in your life, that's a lived experience. And if you decide to gift that to others in whatever way you would like to bring that forward, so let's call that a project, then the useful what's is the explanation of and description of the time, effort, and money that you're putting into that project so that you can gift others so that they can benefit from your lived experience. So one of the ways in which to do that, a legacy project, might be mentoring your lived experience, and maybe it's to those who would ask you questions in your workplace and you're still employed, and you could set up a legacy project to help those that you are working with. Maybe you have moved into a part of your life, your next 50 life, where you want to get involved with nature informed, nature inspired, nature aware projects, being an activist or an advocate or an actionist. And you're looking at your involvement in a project, and you want to certainly bring this notion of extraordinary to the foreground for yourself, and see what you can do with those that you interact with, the community that you interact with. And that could be a legacy project as well. And how do you assign your time, effort, and money to that? So there's a wide spectrum of ways in which to create a legacy project for yourself. I tend to lean into assisting those with legacy projects that are nature aware, informed, inspired, based. And I'll be shooting more videos about that, shorter videos. There will be times where I will bring up the subject in the WELLth Agora, which tends to be more of a live stream format, and I'll be bringing guests in to share stories about their legacy projects from an experience the extraordinary. So of the tips that are here, and that's why getting something like a legacy notebook, a legacy journal to write down your ideas, that's great. And you can find those on the wealthmovement.com /legacy page and access them through the store as well. But the first one that I wanted to go over with you is this notion of the tips of your values and challenges. Now, what's happening here is that we all live from a hierarchy of values. There are certain things in our life that we'll put much more time, effort, and money into, our priorities, and it sort of goes down from there, that hierarchy. For me, it's very much to write. It used to be travel. I don't do that as much anymore, but writing and sharing through education means is a way of doing that. That sort of has a social value that goes with it. There's a physical value that I have. I enjoy walking, and walking with nature is one of the ways in which I do that. And there is a spiritual value in terms of my own personal awareness and my awareness that's personally connected to the outer doors with trees and forests. So there's a hierarchy, and a little bit lower in my hierarchy might be the notion of I'm attempting to create a financial empire somehow. While money is useful to be able to live and to experience the extraordinary, it's not high on my priority, but I'm also making enough that I can enjoy myself in my life. But there is this hierarchy that's there, and that's the values component. And each one of us has a hierarchy of values and the different elements that make up those different components. Not everyone enjoys writing, but you might be a great photographer. You might be someone who loves to draw. You might be someone who loves to sculpt. Maybe woodworking is a way to excite your creative process. So again, many ways in which to unfold that for yourself from a values point of view. But the complementary element to this is the challenges that you accept. Challenges for me might be writing books. And so there's different kinds of books. So there's the book which has more medium to high content. There are books more low content, but each one of them is a way in which to challenge myself to use the thinking and feeling aspects, my personal awareness, trying to figure out what might be of value to you as you're watching this or listening to this broadcast. So with that, there are different kinds of challenges, but there's also the challenges from outside, and you might go, I really don't like what's happening to the oceans, and especially in the area in which I live, in the coral reef. And what can I do? What can I challenge myself to do, right, that links to my hierarchy of values, that contributes into what's taking place with the ocean? So that's one example. Another one might be is that homelessness is something that really touches your heart, and there's a challenge there, what it is that you may be able to do and to develop an extraordinary experience around that for yourself and those that you interact with. So there's many challenges connected to your hierarchy of values, and how does that play itself out for you in adding dashes to those bookends, those 2 year-end bookends that you're living with and from and through, as an example. So let me touch now on this notion of a, to, and the combination. Now, this is in relation to experience. So an experience, to experience, the experience. So I'm playing a little bit here with the grammar. So an experience is something that you're setting up. You may not have actually gone through it. So you might say, I'm setting up an experience to engage with an urban park. And what I want to do is set up a fitness program for myself, interacting with an urban park near me. And what do I need to do to be able to have that happen? And so it's going back to the hierarchy of values of a physicality aspect of things. You might go, I'm going to set up an experience that allows me to interact with the different birds that are in my area, and you may want to go into bird watching and getting binoculars to be able to do that, and finding a quiet place where you know that lots of birds interact with. And that's something that you want to challenge yourself with, is actually creating a bird journal of the birds that are in and around your area. So you have to set that up. That's an experience. But any of those that we're talking about, to experience that is to actually be present in the experience, to be aware of the experience unfolding for you. Now, that requires reflection and minding of that presence, the reflection in, the reflection on. It might be this is where you would bring out a bird watching journal, or you might bring out a fitness journal. If you're doing any other kind of project, what is it that you're learning? What are you reflecting on? That's to experience whatever that challenge is and connecting it to your hierarchy of values. Then there's this notion of the experience. And what you might do is you might put that on that continuum of good to extraordinary. So the experience of that firefighting situation, and that day where I encountered that forest fire moving in towards the lake, that the experience of that ocean beach with the friends, the experience that I could explain to you about being on a bus that was stopped by military in a country and was boarded, and the soldiers were asking questions. And that was the experience I remember of that country, balanced off by other experiences, other extraordinary experiences of that country, and how might they sort of unfold for me. So there is this notion of the legacy project that you're going to set up. So there's an experience of it, to experience the project. What is the project? What is the experience that you take from it? What's the learning, knowing, and sharing that you bring forth from that? The next one I want to take a look at is the sense of the action outcomes. And this is a way in which to, in a sense, set up, stride forward, stay found, shine light, share wisdom about your legacy project. And it's using action outcomes to be able to do that. So I've already given you a sense of set up. What was the next one? It was to stride forward, the notion of stay found. These are action verbs and inspired standards or outcomes. And how might you write up like a checklist of things that you must complete to be able to do your legacy project? Buy a pair of binoculars, but to do the buying is research the types of binoculars that are useful to bird watching, as an example. If you're going to do homelessness, what's the research, the homelessness situation where you live? Not just sort of jump into it. It would require a little bit of research, and then to have conversations. In other words, to seek out those that you can have a conversation with about homelessness. Again, it's the action verbs, and verbs like list, identify, describe, explain, discuss, and then get into demonstrate, use, manage, lead, evaluate, review. Those are action verbs, and I'm just giving you a sense of some, but there's lots that you can work with. And the outcomes are the inspired standards, the outcomes that you would like to see is if it is to reduce homelessness for young persons, especially young women, then you could go down that path of an action outcome to be able to do that. Maybe what it is to assist the bird watching, to be able to set up bird feeding stations that would be of value. Now, again, you have to play that one out a little bit, because you may not think that bird feeding stations is something that is extraordinary because it may not be something that's warranted for your area. But then again, each place around the world, what's happening, even a bird feeding station might be an extraordinary experience. So again, you would have to sort of think through that, feel through that to see if that's working for you. So I'm hoping I'm giving you a few examples of action outcomes. So for me, it's to write prompt and activity books for older adults. And it's to be able to remember is sometimes I have to use a larger font in that book. So I want to create it as an extraordinary experience for those who are aging, to think of the characteristics that would support their aging lifestyle. And especially I'm interested in supporting solo agers, those who don't have kin around, and being one. Then it's also important to figure out how I might be able to create a community of insights, a community of practice, a community of significance for solo agers when they want to use their legacy project in support of something that's nature aware, informed, inspired, based. So I think you can see the connection that I'm working with and the action outcomes that would be necessary to bring that story to life, and that I can actually share it, get to learn about it, know it, share it kind of idea. Now, the next area I wanted to take a look at is this idea of novel, dramatic, and safer. So to experience the extraordinary, what you want to do is there's probably some novelty to it. I can't say that I was looking to find a forest fire that was burning down a hill and people are involved and there was a motorboat there and I was going to go do it. That had a little bit of, I was in the correct place at the correct time and had the correct resources to be able to deal with it. But there is the notion of the novelty of being able to go to a sunrise over an area, or actually watch the sunrise at a beach or in the mountains. And you might say, I'm going to create a novel experience. These are the action outcomes that I have to take to be able to have that happen, to be able to have an experience, to experience the experience based on my values and the challenges I put in front of myself. Then the challenge might be is I have to walk for a good couple hours to set myself up in that novel situation, to have that extraordinary experience. And that could be something of a legacy project. They're personal. But what you're going to do is take photographs of it. You're going to draw them and bring them back, and maybe share those with your family as ways in which to excite their involvement in the outdoors. Dramatic, I think the notion of there is some sort of drama to it that you sort of going, wow, and you're taking it in. Drama could be brought forward by there's some other people with you. Invite some friends to go with you. And the conversation, the dramatic elements of the conversation as you're experiencing the novelty of what's taking place and listening to the words that the others are using to share what they're seeing happening unfold, and to be able to go, oh, that's such a beautiful way to express that sunrise that you're seeing, to be able to understand what's unfolding and dealing with some civic issue that you're involved with as a legacy project. But there is the element of safer, in other words, to manage the safe systems and lead safer practices, because the dramatic elements and the novelty of it, let's use the walking to, finding a place in which to set up, making sure that its safety is in mind while you're engaged in that, and not getting so close to the edge of a cliff to get that really great photograph that you might put yourself in peril, as an example. So again, it's making that combination of novel, dramatic, safer, find its way into the experience to make it still extraordinary, so you're not experiencing something else where you might harm yourself. And if you harm yourself and there's others with you, maybe they're attempting to help you out and they harm themselves. So again, it's thinking through this novel, dramatic, safer lens. The other ones that I wanted to take a look at is this idea of consequential, workable, and metaphoric. Now, where I'm going here is that there is some sense of a consequence that go with the experience, and that's the aspect. The consequence could be the drawing of photography, but the consequence could be a deeper welling up of how important it is to maintain natural areas. So going to one has a consequence of going to what are others and what can I do to maintain them so that others can enjoy them. And often, like forests are knocked down for agriculture or housing development. And you might go, what can I do to make sure that we still maintain some urban parks so that we don't lose the ability for those who may not be able to get out into wilderness remote areas to still benefit from an urban forest. So there's ideas like that, that there's consequences, and by looking at one, how might that influence you with others? How might dealing with water issues or homelessness or poverty somewhere in the city for young women actually impact your thinking about how do you set it up so that it doesn't, the families don't find themselves where the young women actually end up homeless? How can you help them take care of things happening in their homes? That's a legacy project for yourself. The notion of workable is that you can actually do something. Sometimes you might find or feel as though, well, I don't know if I can really make a difference. I'm only one person, but if you can't do it, who can? If there's something that's in your hierarchy of values, it's a challenge that you want to take up, then make and find ways to develop the action outcomes to make it workable, to find the way in which to make that experience extraordinary for yourself. There are many ways in which to unfold that as well. For me, the workable aspect of the writing is I have a writing desk over here, and it's filled with different books that are dog-eared, and I've got little pieces of paper stuck in the top of books to remind me to think about things and to write. And so I have this way in which to make it workable for me. And then I have my computer set up so that I can do other kind of research or other kind of writing. But I have this sort of pencil, paper, colored pencils, highlighters table over here. And then I have my computer world here. And how do I interact with them? And in today's world, with the AI support that's available, that's another element to bring in. I go into different places to do different kinds of drawings and see how I might think through some ideas. I go to some AI writing apps to work with. There's a project that I'm interacting with through my own head that I'll be bringing out more is, what do trees look like on distant planets? I have no clue, and I don't know if there's anyone, so it has to come from the imagination. So there's a challenge there. I call it celestial dendrology. Dendrology is the study of trees. Celestial is out there on distant planets, and what might they look like? And I've been playing around a little bit in the AI world to figure out what some trees might look like. So it's kind of fun to see what I can come up with. The other one is the metaphoric. And this is where, like, personal awareness, you're minding, people will use words like mindfulness, and being with trees and forests is a way in which to what's happening in my interactions with nature that I can bring and interact with family and friends? Is there something that I learn from trees as living systems educators that I might be able to bring back metaphorically, find other ways in which to interact with those ideas that might link to homelessness, to link to poverty? What is it that I can do from one area and interact with another area, and the metaphors that come out of that? I created what I call a tree compass, a gyro compass, and it's playing with the notion of a compass which works off the magnetics of the planet. The tree compass is my orientation to, instead of thinking of it through as a compass, thinking of it as a tree. And I'm always reminding myself that the tree is grounded as much as in the sky, as much as in the earth. And how does that play itself out for me? And that metaphor of the tree and connecting it through a gyro compass, kind of a compass that moves, and thinking it through in a slightly different way, I was able to go, okay, I have my magnetic compass to deal with being for the world, and I have my tree gyro compass, which is about how being with the planet, and I use the two of those to figure out how to be from the whole. So it's just a way for me to be able to bring lots of insights together. And that is, if that's something you want to look at a little bit more, certainly reach out, direct message me wherever you find this video. So the notion of metaphors is really, really important when you start to make connections. And the extraordinary experience that you have, how might it become metaphoric and workable and consequential to other things that you're doing, and doing it in a safer, dramatic, novel way, using the action outcomes that bring forth your understanding of an experience, to experience the experience, which then contributes to the challenges that you want to take up and the values that you have. So what I'm hoping is that you can see how these 5 tips to experience the extraordinary through a legacy project can all unfold. And that's where the legacy notebook, legacy journal, ways in which to record those ideas. Now, these are pencil, pen, different colored pencils, actual books that you put on your desk. You can access a PDF version, all right, that you can print off certain pages. You could create your own notebooks and journals yourself, and to be able to work with them. I can provide a Word version of these so that you can play with them as well. So there's lots of ways to interact with the resources that are available through the WELLth movement. But again, is it on a quarterly basis? Oh, I should bring this, just drop that down so I can show. Books, prompt and activity books. These are available off of Amazon, similar to the Legacy Journal is available on Amazon. So you can pull them off from there as well. So with this topic of the 5 tips, I hope I've sort of laid out a bit of a seed bed, a building foundation for you to get going. I will be going into these in much more detail. So for example, the hierarchy of values, there's a chap by the name of Dr. John DeMartini, and he has a really great free program to figure out what your hierarchy of values are. The notion of what is a challenge and how do you develop a challenge using action outcome statements. So there'll be different elements of even these 5 tips and more tips around extraordinary experiences, and certainly a lot more insights about what it means to create legacy projects will unfold. But today I just wanted to go over, let's call it an overview, a starter, to be able to take a look at this notion of extraordinary experience and its connection to legacy projects. So again, to those of you who are agers, solo agers, eco agers, you'd like to get a little bit more involved, wealthmovement.com. You can come to that website. Again, the YouTube channel, Wealth Learning TV, you can find ideas there. I've opened up another channel called Awarests. It's Awarests, and it's connected to the books that will be coming out. And there'll be a whole series of books and journals and workbooks around connecting awareness and forest, if that's an area that you'd like to interact with. If mentoring is of interest to you, a YouTube channel, international mentoring community on the Wealth Movement channel. It's wealthmovement.com/mentor if you want to get started. Awareness is also on Wealth Movement, and that's wealthmovement.com/awareness. Now, all of these links to these YouTube channels and web pages are in the show more notes around where you find this video as well. I think I've covered off what I wanted to chat, share, dialogue, interact with you. I'm checking my different chat areas. I don't see anything that's come in as questions today. That's okay. You can, if you're watching this afterwards, you can certainly put questions in and around, and I will answer you. And at any time, the website wealthmovement.com/contact, you can use it to send a question, a query. Hey, if you got a funny and you want to suggest it to us, please do. If there's a topic for a video, that's another great way in which to do it. So with that, I am going to wish you the best. May peace be with you, the forest and the trees that you interact with, and take care.